In the annals of aviation history, few stories are as remarkable as that of Avianca, an airline that has defied death more times than a cat with 9 lives. Founded in 1919 as Skadita by German aviators in Colombia, this carrier holds the distinction of being the world's second oldest continuously operating airline, trailing only KLM by a mere 5 months. What makes Avianca's century-long journey extraordinary isn't just its longevity, but its ability to survive through civil wars, drug cartel violence, multiple bankruptcies, hijackings, and political upheavals that would have grounded lesser companies permanently. From its humble beginnings with a single Junkers F-13 aircraft serving routes along Colombia's Magdalena River to becoming Latin America's largest airline before its recent struggles, Avianca's story reads like a thriller novel where the protagonist refuses to stay dead. The airline's origins trace back to December 5, 1919, when German pilots Helmut von Krohn and Stuart Hosey, along with Colombian investors, established Sociedad Colombo-Alemana de Transportes Aéreos in Barranquilla. Colombia's challenging geography, with the Andes Mountains dividing the country into isolated regions and limited road infrastructure, made aviation not just convenient, but essential for national connectivity. By 1921, SCADA was operating regular passenger service between Barranquilla and Girardot, becoming one of the first airlines in the world to offer scheduled passenger flights. The German influence was profound during these early years, with Lufthansa holding a significant stake and providing technical expertise that would prove invaluable. However, this Germanic connection would later become a liability as World War II approached, and the United States grew suspicious of German influence in Latin America's strategic aviation sector. The transformation from SCADA to Avianca occurred in 1940 under dramatic circumstances that epitomized the geopolitical tensions of the era. As Nazi Germany's influence expanded globally, the United States pressured Colombia to eliminate German control over its national airline, viewing it as a potential security threat in America's backyard. The Colombian government, caught between maintaining its aviation industry and appeasing its powerful northern neighbor, orchestrated a complex buyout with backing from Pan American World Airways. On June 14, 1940, SCADA was merged with another Colombian carrier, SACO, to form Aerovías Nacionales de Colombia, which would later be known simply as Avianca. This rebirth under American influence brought new capital, modern aircraft, and access to U.S. technology, but it also marked the beginning of decades of foreign involvement in the airline's operations that would repeatedly complicate its independence. The post-war decades brought unprecedented growth as Avianca expanded beyond Colombia's borders to become a truly international carrier. In 1946, the airline inaugurated service to Miami, marking its entry into the lucrative North American market that would become crucial to its financial success. The 1950s and 1960s saw rapid fleet modernization as Avianca transitioned from propeller aircraft to jets, introducing the Sud Aviation Caravelle in 1962 and later the Boeing 707 and 720 aircraft that could handle long-haul international routes. By 1970, Avianca was serving destinations across the Americas and Europe, with routes to cities like London, Paris, and Frankfurt, establishing itself as Latin America's premier international airline. The company's growth was fueled by Colombia's emerging economy and its strategic position as a gateway between North and South America, but this expansion also coincided with the rise of darker forces that would soon test the airline's resilience. The 1970s and 1980s brought Avianca face-to-face with Colombia's most violent period as drug cartels transformed the country into a war zone. The airline became both a target and an unwitting participant in the narcotics trade that plagued Colombia during these decades. Pablo Escobar and the Medellin cartel saw aviation as crucial to their operations, leading to numerous attempts to infiltrate or attack airlines. Avianca Flight 203, blown up by Escobar's men on November 27, 1989, killing all 107 people aboard, remains one of the darkest chapters in the airline's history and demonstrated the lengths to which cartels would go to eliminate perceived enemies. The bombing was intended to kill presidential candidate Cesar Gaviria, who fortunately wasn't on the flight, but it showcased how Colombia's airlines had become pawns in a larger battle between cartels and the government. Beyond direct attacks, Avianca faced constant security threats, extortion attempts, and the challenge of maintaining operations in a country where violence had become routine. financial turbulence proved as dangerous as physical threats throughout Avianca's history, with the airline filing for bankruptcy protection multiple times, yet somehow managing to emerge stronger each time. The first major financial crisis came in 1980 when Colombia's economic recession severely impacted travel demand, forcing the government to restructure the airline's debt and inject fresh capital to prevent collapse. The 1990s brought privatization as Colombia sought to reduce government involvement in the airline industry, leading to a complex ownership structure involving international investors and management companies. However, the new century brought fresh challenges as increased competition from low-cost carriers, economic instability, and the aftermath of 9/11 created perfect storm conditions for financial distress. Despite these setbacks, Avianca continued expanding, acquiring smaller airlines across Latin America and building a network that at its peak included subsidiaries in Peru, Ecuador, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, and Costa Rica. The airline's most recent brush with extinction came in May 2020 when Avianca filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection in the United States, becoming one of the largest airline failures of the COVID-19 pandemic era. The coronavirus crisis devastated global aviation, but Avianca was particularly vulnerable due to its high debt levels, complex multi-country operations, and dependence on international travel that virtually disappeared overnight. The bankruptcy filing affected over 20,000 employees across multiple countries and threatened to end the century-old airline's remarkable survival story. However, true to its history of defying death, Avianca emerged from bankruptcy in December 2021 under new ownership led by Kingsland Holdings, a company controlled by Adrian Neuhauser, with a significantly reduced but more focused operation centered on its strongest markets in Colombia and Central America. What sets Avianca apart from other failed airlines is not just its ability to survive crises, but its role in shaping Latin American aviation and its consistent innovation despite overwhelming challenges. The airline pioneered numerous routes across Latin America, often being the first to connect remote destinations with major cities, and played a crucial role in integrating Colombia's isolated regions into the national economy. Avianca was among the first airlines globally to introduce frequent flyer programs in Latin America, launched one of the region's first airline loyalty credit cards, and consistently invested in modern aircraft and technology even during financial difficulties. The carrier's maintenance operations became renowned throughout Latin America, servicing not only its own fleet, but aircraft from other airlines, generating crucial additional revenue streams. Avianca's pilot training programs produced generations of aviators who went on to work for airlines across the region, essentially building much of Latin America's aviation expertise. The human cost of Avianca's survival story cannot be overlooked, as the airline has endured multiple tragic accidents and attacks that claimed hundreds of lives over its century of operations. Beyond the 1989 bombing by Pablo Escobar's cartel, Avianca suffered several major accidents, including Flight 52, which crashed in New York in 1990 after running out of fuel while in holding patterns, killing 73 people. Flight 011 crashed into a mountain near Madrid in 1983, killing all 181 aboard in what remains one of Spain's worst aviation disasters. These tragedies, while devastating, also drove improvements in safety protocols, maintenance procedures, and crew training that helped establish Avianca as one of the region's safer carriers in recent decades. The airline's ability to learn from disasters and implement changes that prevented similar future incidents demonstrates an institutional resilience that goes beyond mere financial survival. As Avianca continues operating under its post-bankruptcy structure, the airline faces a fundamentally different aviation landscape than the one it navigated for most of its history. Low-cost carriers have democratized air travel across Latin America. Government protection for national airlines has largely disappeared, and environmental concerns are reshaping the industry's future. The COVID-19 pandemic accelerated changes that were already underway, including increased domestic travel focus, reduced international expansion, and greater emphasis on operational efficiency over growth at any cost. Yet Avianca's story offers lessons about institutional survival that extend far beyond aviation, demonstrating how companies can endure seemingly impossible challenges through adaptability, strategic restructuring, and the willingness to fundamentally reimagine their operations when circumstances demand it. Whether this latest chapter represents another successful resurrection or the beginning of a final decline remains to be written, but Avianca's century-long battle against extinction has already secured its place as one of the most remarkable survival stories in business history. The airline that began with German pilots flying along Colombian rivers has become a symbol of resilience in a region where survival often requires the ability to reinvent oneself repeatedly, while never losing sight of the core mission that justified existence in the first place.